All right. So we are going to be talking about building the systems and structures needed to grow your practice in a sustainable way. And as Yuli mentioned, I am your digital healer. I'm an online business manager and energy guide. So I've been in the digital space over 20 years as a digital marketer, project manager, and more recently an efficiency nerd. I'm also a recovering workaholic, which is why I am starting to talk more about building a balanced business because I have gone through many burnouts and I don't ever want anybody to go through that like I did. And it was actually one of the things that triggered my healing journey probably 15 years ago. I just when to stop, and I ended up getting sick and went through multiple doctors, couldn't figure out what it was, and finally found the holistic healing journey that I am still continuing on. But I have met so many amazing healers along the way, and that's basically why I work with you all, because I basically want you all to feel very well resourced in your business so you can focus on your clients and your healing craft. So what do I mean by a balanced practice? It's basically where you have the structures to hold you when things get rocky, where you feel well resourced. So that's in the amount of time that you have, that you feel well resourced in money, in energy, and that you have support around you to help move you forward. It's where you're not pouring from an empty cup. It's also where creativity flows and where you feel safe in your business. And so you'll start to recognize that if you're familiar with the masculine and feminine energetic dynamics, it's bringing that balance of healthy dynamics into your practice to foster inspired action, harmony, and you can actually have fun in your business too. Um, so I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. So you probably all know about masculine and feminine energetics, but I like to bring this into business. It's not tied to gender. Everyone has these qualities. And usually the shadow side is revealed when you're not in balance. And so I wanted to kind of talk about what those are and why we want to start kind of moving them into the middle. So there's both light and shadow aspects. You have your masculine characteristics, where things are more structured, goal oriented. You're coming more from a self leadership role. Um, However, when there's too much of that, if you're too structured, things get really rigid and there's no flexibility to move. Same with being too goal oriented, you start to become forceful and controlling. I recognize that in my own business sometimes, where when things don't happen the way I want them to, I start kind of like controlling and planning and over planning. And we don't want that. So we want to start kind of pulling things back to the center. Same with self leadership, that can kind of move into egotistical, like narcissistic almost aspects of your business. And then moving over to the feminine side of the characteristics, you're usually you're intuitive, there's flow, there's more focus on collaboration and nurturing relationships. But that too can also go over to the other side of the pendulum, where if you're too intuitive, too much kind of up in the higher realms, you become ungrounded and you start to lose focus of your vision and your mission. If there's too much flow, you kind of become oversaturated and there's this lack of direction of where am I headed, where am I going? And if you have your hands in like too many pots, you become, there's lack of focus. So what we want to do is bring that together, and how this kind of shows up in business. You might recognize some of these. So like masculine characteristics usually are very mission, vision focused. That's where you're building these systems and structures to hold you. You usually have strategy and goals and metrics, and it's really focused on the action and doing. So taking those steps forward. Whereas the feminine characteristics, it's really all about inspiration, intuition, and creativity. That's where a lot of like branding, a lot of the clients that I work with are really into aesthetics and collaborating with others, also utilizing natural rhythms, relaxing, remembering to receive, and really just like trusting the outcome of your business. And so why balance may be hard to find at the moment, we're basically, there's this incoherence of energetics happening because subconsciously we're running this masculine shadow of hustle culture. So it's that drive, that go, go, go kind of attitude, where you feel like you need to have this mission and nothing can stop you and you're just on overdrive. And that's definitely where the overwhelm comes in. If you feel really scattered, that's where that's coming from. And the challenge here, when you're a healer and you're in this healing service, your work is steeped in the feminine. So you're basically doing this tug of war in your business where you're trying to focus on your healing and supporting your clients, and also building this business to help support you and to help you expand and impact more people. And so what we need to do is kind of figure out structures and systems that we can build within your practice as you're building it, to hold both of those and bring them more into balance. So building a practice also requires capacity. So like I was saying, shifting those gears of like working with your clients and opening up into that healing space, and then going into the nitty gritty of social media and landing pages and finance, and trying to really hold all of that together. You need some nervous system work. I think that's imperative. I've also seen a nice tie between how you build your business, and making sure that you feel safe, your body feels safe, in every decision that you move forward with. And then that's also to mention that building a practice takes time and patience. So like with everything in life, nothing's going to go according to plan. You always want to honor the journey and the lessons that come along the way. So we're not seeking perfection. And it's the same thing with nervous system work. It's not like you're going to feel easeful all of the time. You really just want to make sure that you have those structures. So when a storm comes, you are feeling grounded and sure of yourself, and in order to move, those small steps forward. So how do we invite balance in? We want to call in that healthy masculine qualities into your business. So that's structure and direction and safety. And basically that's creating that solid container for creativity to flow in. But you also, with that balance in mind, you also want to make sure that there is flexibility to navigate that change, because there's always going to be change that comes up. It's also a really good time to flex your boundaries. So if you do feel like you're spinning out, or you're in overwhelm, or maybe you're over pleasing some of your clients, you want to set those boundaries and expectations. I feel like that's like a #1 key in business, is just learning to set more boundaries. And then make it personal. This one I also really want to drive home, is that not every business looks like another business. You are really building your practice to both support you and your clients. And so don't forget about you. You are the one who is doing the back end work day in and day out. And so it has to feel good for you. And everybody has their own personal preference. And so actually, when I work with clients, almost everybody's back end systems look totally different, because they all have their preferences. They come to work, they have different likes, they feel better in different terms. So definitely have yourself kind of built into your practice. And then just be cautious of the pendulum swing. So too much masculine can lead to burnout and exhaustion, and too much feminine can lead to no focus and no money. So I like to bring visuals in, and when I'm thinking of this like balance between masculine and feminine in business, I think of the masculine as like this container. So you can be like a terracotta pot, and I don't know if you guys know this, but there's the material is porous, and so that it can expand and contract and it can hold water, so that when maybe an ice storm comes in, it will still contain itself and not break, whereas like ceramic or glass might do. And so it's creating that container and that environment for life and creativity to flow. So that's one visual to think through. Or you can be like a river. I also, whenever I think of like flowing and ease, I think of a flowing river. But what's important to look at is really the banks of the river, is that masculine structure of holding that water in. And the same thing goes with the flexibilities. Like if there is a storm, those banks are kind of meant to ebb and flow and kind of change direction. So you don't want your business to be so rigid that you can't pivot on the dime, because that's also something that's important. There's always going to be changes. So now that we've kind of talked about those healthy balance dynamics, I wanted to get into like the practical business structures that can create that balance. And I always tie things back to nature. I think we can learn so much from nature. With honeycombs, that was another interesting tidbit that I learned, was that the structure that they build their hives basically in is very, very strong, yet it's also made of the wax structure. So it's able to ebb and flow as needed. So again, that like flexibility, but also very efficient. And yeah, there's a lot you can learn about beehives. Okay, so getting into how to build these structures. And there are many ways. I just picked out 6 that we can talk about today. First is kind of basic, but I have found this to be super important and very healing, I guess. So I think the challenge, if you are feeling like there is just this overwhelm and that there's a blur between work and life, sometimes your work brain, or maybe most of the time your work brain, is always on. For me, when I first started building my business, I was thinking about it all the time. Like when I was doing dishes, going to sleep, it wasn't really healthy for me because it was just turned on all the time, and I couldn't really focus on my personal life. And to me, my personal life is also important. I want to feel good and have fun, and so one way to do that is to create that container, and doing daily rituals is a way to set that boundary to build better habits. And so again, this can be like personal to you, whatever you like to do. What I have found helpful, so in the morning, in addition to my regular morning practice, I set a work morning practice. So when I walk into my space, I make sure that my desk is clean. So this can maybe take like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you have time for. I set my intentions. Sometimes like I can get kind of emotional about tasks. So it's helpful to brain dump a lot of things. So journaling is really helpful for me. Going outside, grounding, putting my feet on the ground, getting some movement in. Picking 1 to 2 of those things every morning, I find really helpful, and it just kind of starts the day off. And then in the evening, before you walk into your personal life, I would recommend doing something like a reflection. So reflecting on the projects and experiences that you had on the throughout the day. Did you learn any lessons? Can you take any wisdom from that and make a little small changes moving forward? It's also a really great time to plan for the next day. So always taking a look at your calendar. Do you have appointments? Do you need to reschedule appointments? Do you have enough time to do your tasks that you had prioritized? And then even just like basic closing the door to your space and kind of closing out that container is really helpful. And then for all of these, I always want to like invite that balance in. So how much of a boundary do we actually want? Again, this is going to be personal to everybody. So like digital nomads, for example, they love to travel and work at the same time. So their boundary is kind of blurred, but that's the way they like it. And so they set that tone, and you can set that tone as well. Okay, checking time. So prioritization is another one that, especially with the healers that I work with, they tend to be visionaries, which is awesome. There's just this like open line of creativity that comes through. Yet the challenge is that there's so many ideas that are coming through. Lots of ideas for projects, for retreats, for offers, for social media posts. And that can often lead to scattered brains and lack of direction because there's just so much. And what happens is that either you hold it in and you become forgetful and you don't actually focus on the things that need focusing on, or you do let it out and you have piles of post-it notes everywhere and like 5 journals with task lists and check boxes. And so that's not very helpful either because it's hard to find things. And so what I always recommend for my clients is getting a project management platform. There is software now that will allow you to do those brain dumps. So basically, you're jotting down all your ideas in a digital format. You can use your phone. I know a lot of folks who are on the go and don't love being on a computer, and granted, they don't really like being on the phone either. But there's also ways to do like quick audios that would automatically create a task for you. So the benefit of having all of your information and ideas in a digital format is that it's much easier to organize and search through. So you can assign and organize tasks by priority, by due date, by owner or status. And this becomes really helpful too when you start growing your practice and you begin pulling on other practitioners or contractors or partners who are going to be working with you on projects. Um, it basically helps even the platform for everyone. Everyone becomes on the same page because all of the ideas and thoughts and details in your head are now out in a shared space where everybody can see, okay, what's the priority? Who is working on what? So this becomes really important to get it all out and organize your thoughts this way. Another thing that I really love about project management platforms is that you can create templates. So let's say you do a lot of workshops or you are building multiple retreats. There's going to typically be a framework that's general for everyone. So you're always going to have a landing page. You're going to have to do some social media and promotions. There might be registration and booking. So you would basically create that structure or outline so you could repeat it over and over. So you can just copy and create a new template every time you have a new offer. And you already know what the tasks are, what the time it might take for those tasks. And it just, it does create that structure that we're looking for. And then inviting that balance in, I would say always plan for pivots. So like I was saying, my project manager brain just wants to plan everything out. And I actually did that recently. I have a course coming up on Inbox Zero, and I had like 3 months ahead of time. I had planned out every single step. And sure enough, life happened. I had a ton of client work that came up. I had a vacation and an unexpected vacation that came up. And that totally messed with my plans. And so what I would always recommend is building in time and regularly adjusting to meet your needs. So we'll talk about this in the weekly planning structure that I'm going to recommend, but always making sure that you're checking in on plans. It doesn't need to take a ton of time, but just understanding where you're at, what your capacity is, and who you have around you for support. And then also don't forget about personal tasks and self-care. There's always going to be appointments that you need to get to. If you have kids, there's always pickup and drop-offs. Making sure that that's built into your business plan as well, because that's what we're doing here is we're trying to find that balance between work and fun. Okay, the next structure I would recommend is time blocking. This one actually I was hesitant about for the longest time because I hate looking at a calendar and seeing a ton of blocks and a ton of things going on. But I dipped my toe in it, and I'm actually a believer now. I find that that is so helpful. So basically, um, if you are anything like me, when I first started out, I immediately would go, I would open up my computer, I would look at my inbox, and I would go from the first email all the way down and just see how many emails that I could get throughout the day. And I would look up after like 5 emails and it would be half the day would be gone. So you're basically tending to the fires and tending to your clients' needs when you're not necessarily tending to your own needs first. And so you get to be in this like reactive rather than proactive state. So that's where time blocking can be a different way. So I would definitely recommend trying this on. It took me a couple of iterations to find what worked for me. So again, this is like focusing on personal aspects of what your natural rhythm is. So basically, if you don't know what time blocking is, it means that you are blocking off time on your calendar for an everyday occurrence. So let's say you basically categorize your work into themes. And if you wanted to do this on your own, you could um, maybe take a week and list out all the tasks that you're doing every day and start to organize them. And you'll start realizing that there are buckets that you can identify. So since you are all healers, you're definitely going to be working with clients. There might be group healing that you do. Um, you probably do focus on some social media content creation. There's always going to be some back end admin finance work. And so you take that and block it off on your calendar every week as here's when I work on this particular type of work. And so that helps your brain kind of focus in on one like area of your business at a time rather being scattered and unfocused. Definitely consider your natural rhythm too. So there's different ways of doing it. If you prefer more focused work, I would recommend like building in like 2 to 3 hours of work time on your calendar versus maybe having like consistent short blocks throughout the week. And then putting you and your business first. This was also a hard one because I'm a people pleaser, and I always wanted to make sure it just didn't make sense in my head. Like I always want to make my clients first priority. But I had to relearn and unlearn that kind of programming in my head that I actually do come first, and that means my business needs to come first. I needed to be well supported and well resourced. And so the change that I made was I actually have an hour now as the first thing that I do is I am working on my business to make sure that I have money coming in, that I have clients coming in, that I am feeling good in my business, that I am, I have everything planned out. And so I'm not like helping other people's problems first. So always focus on yourself first. And then once you have that time blocking set out, the next step basically is to adjust your booking platform accordingly. So if you do work with Helist or Calendly or Acuity, anything that has a place for your clients to schedule something with you and place their time on your calendar, you need to set those boundaries. And so if you're only going to be focusing on client work Tuesdays and Thursdays, make sure that your booking platform only has availability on Tuesdays and Thursdays so people aren't booking over your time, your focus time. That has been kind of a game changer for me because I used to have meetings spread out all over across the week. And it's really hard to shift your brain and gears from meetings to another meeting. And they might be talking about two separate things. So figuring out what your rhythm is, making sure you block it on your calendar. And then inviting balance. So don't forget about creative time and rest time. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Pomodoro technique. There is an app, you can actually search for it on Google, where This felt a little too rigid for me at first. It basically sets 25 minutes and then it gives you a 5-minute break and it's an alarm. So it's like a timer. So a little timer will go off after your 25-minute break. But I think it was a little too rigid for me. But what I really liked about it is the fact that I was forcing myself to rest, because oftentimes I would go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And I need that like creative just rest time. That's bringing in that feminine dynamic of that's where you're getting your ideas. And that's usually if I'm taking a walk out into nature or laying on the couch and doing some breath work. That's when I get the best ideas. So this is actually, even though you're resting, it can be very supportive for your business. So make sure you block those in as well. Okay, and I wanted to give you a visual. So like I was saying, when I first saw things like this, I'm like, there's no way I can do this because it was too much for my brain. But I did try it out. So you can see the way that I block things out. This is on my project management platform called ClickUp. And it's pulling in my calendar from Google. And this is kind of a typical week. So on Sundays, I have my weekly planning. We'll go over that in a second. But then I have blocked in time for my morning routine. Your Digital Healer is my business. And then I have some large blocks in there for clients. And it kind of changes throughout the week because I go to the gym and there's some other stuff in there that I want to account for every time. And so this is basically just giving me a framework for my work. So then talking about weekly planning, this is also something that can be really important if you're not doing it. So if you find that you start your Mondays feeling a little ungrounded and unprepared, generally you're missing appointments, you feeling rushed, or there's some reaction there. Weekly planning can be really helpful. And so what I would recommend is like blocking off maybe an hour or two, either like first thing Monday morning. I do it on Sundays because I do have the time, or you could do it at the end of your week. So every Friday before you leave for the week. And if you work on weekends too, again, this is all personal. Just make sure that it's either at the beginning or the end of your week that you set time on your calendar and you make it a routine. So before you get started, set that routine. And then what you do is you prioritize your tasks. You take a look at what meetings you have on the calendar. You pull in your tasks. You understand, what needs to get done this week. You have your project management tool to help you prioritize what those tasks are. You assign dates to those. And then adjust as needed. So it's basically a visual of your capacity for that week. And if you are starting to see that you have some timelines that you really need to, like you've got a launch or something, maybe you might be able to reschedule a meeting that could be done next week with no harm. So that's your time to really kind of adjust and be flexible with what is coming up for you during that week, so you're not overextending yourself. And then it's also a really good way to zoom out and ask if these tasks are actually helping you move the needle. So oftentimes we have all of these great ideas, but are these things really going to be helping you achieve the goals that you want? And that's talking about the masculine and feminine dynamics. Like the masculine is really focused towards a goal and a strategy. So having the overall strategy, knowing what things are going to be helping you move forward and what things you're maybe habitually doing because they feel good and safe. So really kind of taking a bigger look at what you have going on, what are your projects, and making sure that your daily tasks, more down to the details, are aligned with your higher vision. And then definitely like being open to flexibility, adding in rest time and buffer time, and don't forget about personal calendars too. So definitely, I don't know if you guys use Google Calendars, but there is a way to see both calendars at the same time. That's really helpful to kind of take a look at your week and how that's going to plan. And And so this is an example. It's kind of hard to explain, but with ClickUp, my project management tool, the items in gray are actually my task blocks. And so I start my Sundays, I have a list of tasks that I know that I need to do. I'm working with clients, so I know that I have the hours set. And so it's basically just a drag and drop. So I'm dragging them into my time blocks here. And it what this does is I will come to my week on a Monday and see, okay, well, I've got some time for breakfast. I'm going to do my morning routine. I'm going to work on my business. I'm going to take some breaks, walk my dog, and then I'm going to focus. I've got focus time on a couple of clients. And so this helps me kind of take a look at what's going on for the week. And then the last one, see, we're good on time, is in inquiry management. So again, when you're starting your day, oftentimes you get barraged by communications. Either that's your clients, your patients, people that you're working with, your team. And generally, we have too many incoming communication channels that can spread our attention and quickly steer us off track. So if you are that type of person who wants to get to people's needs right away and not really focus on yourself, this can be a huge distraction. And so some ways to kind of work around that is definitely reducing the channels of communication. So if you are like a coach, for example, and you offer Voxer or Signal support on top of email, or maybe you, I know some people still text people. I feel like that's a huge boundary to set. I only want people texting me on my personal life, not necessarily my business, because I don't want them to have access to me at all times. So that takes us to the next piece, is really setting clear expectations. So maybe when you are onboarding new clients, you want to be very clear on when you're available and the typical turnaround time for such things, because that's where you're setting your boundaries. You don't want to be available on the weekends or evenings. That's one thing that I've set as a boundary for myself is I end my day at 5 and I try and shut down all screens by 7:30, and that has also changed the whole dynamic on which I work. And now my clients are actually trained that way. So they know that I don't work on weekends. I'm not going to respond to them, but I will respond to them on Monday once I get into their project. So being clear and upfront can be really, really helpful when you're working with your clients. And then zeroing out your email inbox. I know this might feel like a challenge. I was one of those people who had, I think, I was working with like 3 different accounts and I had maybe 60,000 emails in my inbox. And you can imagine what that does to your brain when you start work for the day. I would open up my email and I would have at least like 20 emails staring back at me, and not all of them were needed to be done. They weren't tasks, but it just kind of fills your brain up with added static and can really get you distracted. And so what I would highly recommend is zeroing out your email inbox, cleaning it out, decluttering it, organizing it, so that when you start your workday, you're starting with a clean, fresh slate. So now when I come to work, I have maybe 10 to 20, not even 20. I've got like 10 emails that I get to process. And I have a system in place now where if it's something that I can respond to within 2 to 3 minutes, I'll do that right away. If it's something that looks like it's more of a task or a project, I will then take that and put it into my project management tool. And there's automated ways now to create tasks out of your emails. So that basically pulls it out of your email. So every time you go to your email inbox, it's clear. And that has changed everything, because now I am focused more on my proactive plan, the tasks that I have really made sure that are the things that are going to be moving the needle in my business. And I'm not letting others kind of take over my my day. So definitely recommend that. And then Another secret weapon that I have is posting FAQs on your website. So if you either do a lot of like courses or community platforms where there's just a lot of communication happening between you and your audience, that can also kind of fill up your inbox and your brain, because people are just asking these little repeated things. And so what you can do is you can train people to self-serve before reaching out and asking or requiring your time. And you basically take all the questions, order them, organize them, and add them to your website so they can go to somewhere. You can just point them to a place to go on your website to answer their questions. So that's definitely going to free up a lot of your time. And then inviting balance in, definitely making sure that your systems make sense to your communication style. All right. I also just kind of wanted to touch upon some other systems if you're looking for more structure and balance. There's just a lot out there that you can do in your business. What I generally take a look at are, what are the things that you do on a repeated basis that you can either automate or put into a template or create a system around. So maybe you could hand that off to someone. Here's just kind of a short list. So like content planning system, if you do a lot of social media and emails and blogs, instead of having like Google Docs where you're just brain dumping everything, you can organize that a little better into like a project management system where you're assigning dates to things. You can also work with social media platforms like Buffer or Later. Even Canva does that too. So having some type of system in place where it feels like this much easier way of doing things. Welcome series are really awesome. What I mean by that is you might have a freebie on your website and you set up an email automation. So whenever someone downloads something on your website, you then send this automated series that maybe tells a story or shares some information about what you do. So this is a really good way to reach more people and connect with more people without you actually being there. And there's still that, personal connection because you are the one creating the words. And what happens is that it filters the people. It helps them introduce them to you, and gets them more educated around the work that you do, so that once they've reached that end of the series, they're already aware of your work style. They know if they want to work with you, and you then get a better qualified client because they already have that information. Onboarding systems are really awesome, that you can do a lot of automation there. As you're onboarding new clients, there's a lot of like little detailed steps. And this is where a lot of my clients kind of get thrown because there's a lot of tools out there. I think Helix does this really well in the fact that they're providing an all-in-one platform for you to help book people. So book your clients, to chat with them, to send them messages. And so having that onboarding system feel really good, both for your client and for you, is really important and can save a ton of time when you're automating that. Having like collecting and process feedback for testimonials, making sure that you have like a rhythm involved. So once you do a session, have an automated email sent to your client maybe 3 days later asking how it was. So then you can collect that information, process it into a testimonial, and add it to your social media or your website. And that's just another way of making things feel a little more smooth and structured. I won't go through all of these. Two last things. Documentation is very, very important when you are building your business. Again, we were talking about the cognitive overload of having too much information in your head. And when that happens, you you become very distracted and unfocused. And so what documentation is really helpful for is taking that information and putting it down on paper. In the systems world, we call these SOPs, so standard operating procedures. And I really wish that there was a better term for that because it feels very boring. I'm going to create one someday. But it's basically a manual for your entire business. And you may already have one like this, but having some type of documentation of here is how I do all of the things in my business so that you have a reference. So you can always go back if you forget how to do something in MailChimp or something, you have that written down. And it's also helpful when you start hiring more people, because then you're not having to recreate the wheel and try and like find all the information in your head to make sure that it's passed off to someone, because now it's all on paper. And documentation does need to be updated every once in a while because things, again, move and change within your business. So making sure you have an SOP library is important. And then the last thing is password management. If you don't have a password management tool, it's generally like the little things that really can get your head spinning, or at least for me, if you are trying to remember 20 different passwords to get into all these different tools, that can take up a lot of time and brain space. So there are so many platforms out there that help you put in your passwords. It's very, I would say, somewhat secure. There has been a couple of breaches on some that I have used, but it's definitely a good way to go to get all of your passwords done. You can also share your passwords with your team members in a secure fashion. Okay, I think we've made it through. If you would like to learn more, I have a couple of offers, and I think Yuli did send out an email already, but I think we're also sending out an email with a link here too. So if you are kind of new to systems and you're interested in making your whole business and life feel easier, I do have an email series called Your Systems Prep Kit, and what's included in there is basically a systems checklist. It's very thorough and comprehensive of all of the different areas in your business. So how do you attract your clients? What's your offer? How do you give your services? How do you nurture your clients, and how you bring them back? It's a lot of like how you do these things. So making sure that you are at least thinking about all of those, and then checking off how can we streamline these type of systems. I also include an SOP template, so having some structure to get that documentation out of your head into paper or digital format. And then email scripts I find really helpful too. So if you are emailing certain things to your clients on a regular basis, like maybe a follow-up after your session, you can structure your email so it's a template and you basically just fill it in every time with personal information. So you're saving a lot of time there. I also have my effortless email course. So if you're interested in getting down to inbox zero, I do have, it's a cohort course that I am having as like a live type of class, just to help hold your hand as we go through the steps of cleaning out your inbox. I have a couple of tips to do that pretty easily within Gmail. And that starts March 13th, and I have a discount. I think this ends on Friday, so definitely 40% off if you're interested. That's a steal. And then my intro offer, if you're interested really in getting into systems, I definitely take a holistic view on everything. I want to look at the whole picture, very much like you and your healing. I want to take a whole picture of your business. So I will ask you a bunch of questions in a questionnaire, and I will give you some ideas on how to streamline, like where are the places where you might be feeling stuck, and how can we either automate or delegate or just remove completely out of your business. So I give you some ideas around that. I'm also a tool nerd. So if you are looking at different tools, or if you feel like you have too many tools, I can help you kind of figure out what's the best mix for you. And then I will also give you prioritized next steps. So if you're interested in any of that, you can go to my website, yourdigitalhealer.com/balance. And I think we have some time for questions. Let's see. Whoops.
Yes, and I put a note that people can also put questions in the chat if that's easier.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking right now. So yes, HeList syncs up with Google Calendar. I would definitely Google Workspace Business Suite is very, very helpful for anybody who is starting or like in the middle of their business journey, because there are so many tools there, and their calendar is huge. It connects with a whole bunch of different platforms, so I definitely recommend that. Oh, Pomodoro, yes. Let's see, project management tools. Yeah, Notion is awesome. So let me think. For most of my clients, I recommend Notion for one, because it's not only a project management tool, but it's a workspace tool. So you can use that for your documentation. And it's this awesome, like it's really hard to describe, but it's an awesome way to interconnect a lot of your work. So you can use it as a reference point. I've used it with clients to have like a staff directory, or here's all of, we can do like content planning systems within Notion. There's project management and tasks in there. So definitely love Notion. It's also very customizable, so you can make it look pretty. I feel like that's important for people. Trello is also awesome if you're really just kind of starting off with project management tools. I would say Todoist is one that's very basic, but just feels really easy to me. Trello is great because it's very like drag and drop friendly. So you can see things in columns and you can move them from in progress to completed. So that's really nice. And then definitely if you have a larger team and you're working with a lot of people, I would recommend either ClickUp or Asana. Monday.com is another one, but those can be almost too much for some people because they're so rich with features. But what's nice about that is that you can add in automations. So you can automate emails that get sent out. You can automate tasks that get pulled in. When we're talking about like templates, when you have workshops that you're launching, those are really easy to create in those type of feature-rich platforms. All right. Any other questions? Looks like we're good.
I can add a quick one, maybe related to social media content, and you touched on that briefly, but I
Mhm.
know a lot of healers that I talk to, they kind of complain that they have to waste a lot of time on, creating social content, managing it, scheduling. What are some of your favorite tips and tricks there?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that I feel like I have not mastered yet. But I do have like basic backbone of what to do. So um, where I was talking about having all these ideas and making sure that you're getting them down onto paper or digital format, Notion I feel like is a really good way to do that because it's customizable. So what I do for clients is I build out like an idea system. So basically a place for you to put all of your ideas, and then you have a time block on your calendar where you're going to do social media. And so you check in during that day, and you start to prioritize like what is currently on your plate and what do you want to launch? What are the messages that you want to get out there? Um, and you can kind of organize your ideas that way into posts. So not only are you doing things for social media, but you can also do them for email and blogs and podcasts. So what I recommend is generally starting with a large piece of content, and maybe that's your blog or an email newsletter. And so you're basically taking your idea and putting like outlining it first, then add content. And then what you can do is you can repurpose that into smaller batches for social media. So you can take your outline and maybe the first point can be a post for social media. And so once you have it kind of all planned out there, you can attach things to dates. And that's where you start organizing your storyline. And That's where other tools might come into play. So Later or Planoly, or Buffer. I use Canva just because I have everything in Canva right now. If you use the Pro version, there's a calendar in there. So you basically create a whole bunch of different templates that are branded for yourself, and you can then add in your content there and then share right from Canva. There's also a calendar in there so you can schedule in advance as well. It's somewhat limited because you can't schedule stories or things like that. So that's one thing that I have found with all tools is that there's not perfection out there, unfortunately. I think all tools are trying to be the all-in-one platform, but there's going to be limitations on things. And so you just kind of have to figure out where your comfort style is. So hopefully that answers your question.